dropping by Alibaba.com. Right now we have our Super September sale and Seamless Connection Afghan Blue Lapis Marble and Lapis Lazuli Stone Slab is $1,400 to $4,300 a square meter. That's a steal. You've got to get some. But let's look and see where this beautiful stone and marble come from. That would be Foshan Mono Building Material Company, and they are China's luxury stone supplier. This is the most spectacular stone I have ever seen. Now, they do not do the mining. They buy from suppliers all over the world, like this lapis from Afghanistan, which is on sale right now, $740 to $1,400 a square meter. And if we scroll down, we can also find more from Afghanistan. But along the way, we can see this most incredible marble and also slab stone. Never seen this before. Here we have, though, our marble polished lapis. That's right, $750 to $1,400. You have got to get some. This is Radioactive Banana, and it's September 30th at 8:23 p.m. And when I look at this beautiful slab here, this most amazing marble, you know what I think of? I think of mining. And I think that in order to cut this stone, you're really going to need some high-level precision cutting tools, because this is going to be used for people's homes. This is going to need to be cut for commercial grade. So you're going to need some very expensive equipment to cut the stone and some very experienced men to also run this, as well as you need water to run across the blade when you're cutting the stone. So you're going to need a water resource there. Of course, you're going to need an electricity resource there. And then you're going to need to put this beautiful stone on a specialty truck so it won't get broken. And then you're going to need to drive it to China, to a train, maybe to be loaded on an airplane. And you sure don't want shitty-ass roads, do you? By looking at this website and finding this marble from Afghanistan, you can see that the supply chain is well underway in Afghanistan. Of course, I had to ask myself questions. And the first question I asked was, well, who did all this surveying? And I found the perfect article to tell us who did all the surveying. And this is by Global Research. It's one of my favorite online news agencies. And this article is by Professor Michelle Chossudovsky, one of my favorite writers. And this is titled, "The War is Worth Waging. Afghanistan's Vast Reserves of Minerals and Natural Gas. The war on Afghanistan is a profit-driven resource war." And here's some updates he has. We're going to go past the updates and right to the article here. October 2010. The 2001 bombing and invasion of Afghanistan has been presented to the world public opinion as a just war, a war directed against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, a war to eliminate Islamic terrorism and in-state Western-style democracy. The economic dimensions of the global war on terrorism are rarely mentioned. The post-9/11 counter-terrorism campaign has served to obfuscate the real objectives of the U.S.-NATO war. The war on Afghanistan is part of a profit-driven agenda, a war of economic conquest and plunder, a resource war. While Afghanistan is acknowledged as a strategic hub in Central Asia, bordering on the former Soviet Union, China, and Iran, at the crossroads of pipeline routes and major oil and gas reserves, its huge mineral wealth, as well as its untapped natural gas reserves, have remained, until June 2010, totally unknown to the American public. According to a joint report by the Pentagon and USGS and USAID, Afghanistan is now said to possess previously unknown and untapped mineral reserves estimated authoritatively to be of the order of $1 trillion. And Mr. Chossudovsky always gives you a reference for his information in his articles, so you can look that up, and you'll see that throughout this article. Previously unknown deposits, including huge veins of iron, copper, cobalt, gold, and critical industrial metals like lithium, are so big and include so many minerals that are essential to modern industry that Afghanistan could eventually be transformed into one of the most important mining centers in the world, the United States officials believe. An internal Pentagon memo, for example, states that Afghanistan could become the Saudi Arabia of lithium, a key raw material in the manufacture of batteries for laptops and Blackberries. The vast scale of Afghanistan's mineral wealth was discovered by a small team of Pentagon officials and American geologists. Why was the Pentagon doing this? Why, oh why? The Afghan government and President Hamid Karzai were recently briefed, American officials said. The Pentagon and USGS are looking for minerals, and they finally get around to telling the president about it. While it could take many years to develop a mining industry, the potential is so great that officials and executives in the industry believe it could attract heavy investment, even before mines are profitable, providing the possibility of jobs that could distract from generations of war. There is stunning potential here, General David H. Petraeus, commander of the United States Central Command, said. There are lots of ifs, of course, but I think potentially it's a huge significant. I told you the generals were in on it. Do the generals ever mention on TV that there was vast wealth in Afghanistan? I wonder what kind of kickbacks they're getting, or payoffs, or shares. Because they're a bunch of pirates, and they plunder countries. The value of the newly discovered mineral deposits dwarfs the size of Afghanistan's existing war-bedraggled economy, which is based largely on opium production and narcotics trafficking, as well as aid from the United States and other industrialized countries. Afghanistan's gross domestic product is only about $12 billion. How does that Afghan heroin get to the United States, CIA? That's a question I would like answered. This will become the backbone of the Afghan economy, said Jalil Jumriani, an advisor to the Afghan Minister of Mines. Afghanistan could become, according to the New York Times, the Saudi Arabia of lithium. Lithium is an increasingly vital resource and is used in batteries for everything from mobile phones to laptops, and key to the future of the electric car. At present, Chile, Australia, China, and Argentina are the main suppliers of lithium to the world market. Bolivia and Chile are the countries with the largest known reserves of lithium. The Pentagon has been conducting ground surveys in western Afghanistan. Pentagon officials said that their initial analysis at one location in Ghazni province showed the potential for lithium deposits as large as those in Bolivia. Previously unknown deposits of minerals in Afghanistan. The Pentagon's near $1 trillion estimate of previously unknown deposits is a useful smokescreen. The Pentagon $1 trillion figure is more a trumped-up number rather than an estimate. We took a look at what we knew to be there and asked what it would be worth now in terms of dollars today. The $1 trillion figure seemed to be newsworthy. That was from the Sunday Times in London. Moreover, the results of the USGS study, quoted in the Pentagon memo, on Afghanistan's mineral wealth were revealed 3 years back at a 2007 conference organized by the Afghan American Chamber of Commerce. The matter of Afghanistan's mineral riches, however, was not considered newsworthy at the time. The U.S. administration's acknowledgement that it first took cognizance of Afghanistan's vast mineral wealth following the release of USGS 2007 report is an obvious red herring. Afghanistan's mineral wealth and energy resources, including natural gas, were known to both America's business elites and the U.S. government prior to the Soviet-Afghan War, which was from 1979 to 1988. Geological surveys conducted by the Soviet Union in the 1970s and early 1980s confirmed the existence of vast reserves of copper, among the largest in Eurasia, iron, high-grade chrome ore, uranium, beryl, barite, lead, zinc, fluorspar, bauxite, lithium, tantalum, emeralds, gold, and silver. That's from the Afghanistan Mining Annual Review. These surveys suggest that the actual value of these reserves could indeed be substantially larger than $1 trillion estimate intimated by the Pentagon, USGS, and USAID study. More recently, in a 2002 report, the Kremlin confirmed what was already known. It's no secret that Afghanistan possesses rich reserves, in particular of copper, at the Anek deposit, iron ore in Chossudovsky, uranium, polymetallic ore, oil, and gas. Afghanistan has never been anyone's colony. No foreigner had ever dug here before in the 1950s. The Hindu Kush mountains stretching, together with their foothills, over a vast area in Afghanistan, are where the minerals lie. Over the past 40 years, several dozen deposits have been discovered in Afghanistan, and most of those discoveries were sensational. They were kept secret, however, but even so, certain facts have recently become known. It turns out that Afghanistan possesses reserves of non-ferrous and ferrous metals and precious stones, and, if exploited, they would possibly be able to cover even the earnings from the drug industry. The copper deposit in Anek, in southern Afghan Helmand province, is said to be the largest in the Eurasian continent, and its location, 40 kilometers from Kabul, makes it cheap to develop. The iron ore deposit in Hajigak, in the central Bayam province, yields ore of an extraordinary high quality, the reserves of which are estimated to be 500 million tons. A coal deposit has also been discovered not far from there. Afghanistan is spoken of as a transit country for oil and gas. However, only a very few people know that Soviet specialists discovered huge gas reserves there in the 1960s and built the first gas pipeline in the country to supply gas to Uzbekistan. At the time, the Soviet Union used to receive 2.5 billion cubic meters of Afghan natural gas. During the same period, large deposits of gold, fluorite, barites, and marble onyxes that have a very rare pattern were found. However, the pegmatite fields discovered to the east of Kabul are a real sensation. Rubies, beryllium, emeralds, kunzites, and hidenites that cannot be found anywhere else. The deposits of these precious stones stretch for hundreds of kilometers. Also, the rocks containing the rare metals beryllium, thorium, lithium, and tantalum are of strategic importance. They are used in the air and spacecraft construction. The war is worth waging, says Olga Borisova, in Afghanistan, the Emerald Country. While public opinion was fed images of a war-torn, resourceless developing country, the realities are otherwise. Afghanistan is a rich country, as confirmed by Soviet-era geologist surveys. The issue of previously unknown deposits sustains a falsehood. It excludes Afghanistan's vast mineral wealth as a justifiable cause belli. It says that the Pentagon only recently became aware that Afghanistan was among the world's most wealthy mineral economies, comparable to the Democratic Republic of the Congo or former Zaire of the Mobutu era. The Soviet geopolitical reports were known. During the Cold War, all this information was known in minute detail. Extensive Soviet exploration produced superb geological maps and reports that listed more than 1,400 mineral outcroppings, along with about 70 commercial viable deposits. The Soviet Union subsequently committed more than $650 million for resource exploration and development in Afghanistan, with proposed projects including an oil refinery capable of producing 500,000 tons per annum, as well as a smelting complex for the Aniak deposit that was to have produced 1.5 million tons of copper per year. In the wake of the Soviet withdrawal, subsequent World Bank analysis projected that the Aniak copper production alone could eventually capture as much as 2% of the annual world market. The country is also blessed with massive coal deposits, one of which, the Hajigak iron deposit in the Hindu Kush mountain range west of Kabul, is assessed as one of the largest high-grade deposits in the world. Afghanistan's natural gas. Afghanistan is a land bridge. The 2001 U.S.-led invasion and occupation of Afghanistan has been analyzed by critics of U.S. foreign policy as a means to securing control over the strategic trans-Afghan transport corridor, which links the Caspian Sea basin to the Arabian Sea. Several trans-Afghan oil and gas pipeline projects have been contemplated, including the planned 8 billion Tapi pipeline, which we know now is complete, which would transport Turkmen natural gas across Afghanistan in what is described as a crucial transit corridor. Military escalation under the extended AFPAC war bears a relationship to Tapi. Turkmenistan possesses third largest natural gas reserves after Russia and Iran. Strategic control over the transport routes out of Turkmenistan have been part of Washington's agenda since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. What was rarely contemplated in pipeline geopolitics, however, is that Afghanistan is not only adjacent to countries which are rich in oil and natural gas, it also possesses within its territory sizable untapped reserves of natural gas, coal, and oil. Soviet estimates of the 1970s placed at slightly more than 2 TCFs. The U.S. Energy Information Administration acknowledged in 2008 that Afghanistan's natural gas reserves are substantial. As northern Afghanistan is a southward extension of Central Asia's highly prolific natural gas-prone Amu Dari Basin, Afghanistan has proven probable and possible natural gas reserves of about 5 trillion cubic feet. From the outset of the Soviet-Afghan War in 1979, Washington's objective has been to sustain a geopolitical foothold in Central Asia. America's covert war, namely its support to the Mujahideen freedom fighters, aka Al-Qaeda, was also geared toward the development of the Golden Crescent trade in opiates, which was used by U.S. intelligence to fund the insurgency directed against the Soviets. And there's lots of information on the CIA and the U.S. government funding the Mujahideen. Instated at the outset of the Soviet-Afghan War and protected by the CIA, the drug trade developed over the years into a highly lucrative multi-billion-dollar undertaking. It was the cornerstone of America's covert war in the 1980s. Today, under U.S. NATO military occupation, the drug trade generates cash earnings in Western markets in excess of $200 billion a year. Towards an economy of plunder, the U.S. media, in chorus, has upheld the recent discovery of Afghanistan's mineral wealth as a solution to the development of the country's war-torn economy, as well as a means to eliminating poverty. The 2001 U.S. NATO invasion and occupation has set the stage for their appropriation by Western mining and energy conglomerates. The war on Afghanistan is a profit-driven resource war. Under U.S. and Allied occupation, this mineral wealth is slated to be plundered once the country has been pacified by a handful of multinational mining conglomerates. According to Olga Borisova, writing in the months following October 2001 invasion, the U.S.-led war on terrorism will be transformed into a colonial policy of influencing a fabulously wealthy country. Part of the U.S. NATO agenda is also to eventually take possession of Afghanistan's reserves of natural gas, as well as prevent the development of competing Russia, Iran, and Chinese energy interests in Afghanistan. This article is just so detailed on surveying in Afghanistan, and that we knew in 1960s that Afghanistan just had vast wealth. Vast wealth. So do you think we went into Afghanistan to go after Osama bin Laden, a CIA asset who helped develop the Mujahideen and the Taliban and Al-Qaeda? And we have a new one, ISIS-K. I'm thinking maybe Kellogg's funds that, like Special K cereal. Maybe the Kellogg's Trust is funding, getting weapons to ISIS-K. Remember how many names they've had for ISIS? ISIS, ISIL. It's just ridiculous. We went to Afghanistan after the Soviets came in, did their part, and then the U.S. came in and finished it up. But there's always some game going on, There really is behind the scenes. If we just keep searching and digging through all sorts of websites, we can really find some answers. And I did some more digging. I felt like I just really hadn't got down to finding out if these CIA death squads, if they were, what they were killing people for their land, for mining, for child trafficking, for organ harvesting. They always have many agendas. They don't just go in and do one thing. I found this article at Combating Terrorism Center at West Point, and it's called Afghanistan's Conflict Minerals, the Crime State Insurgent Nexus, and it was written in 2012 by Matthew Dept. I'll do a couple bullet points here. The US DoD and USGS had confirmed the mineral reserves were worth $1 trillion, but the Afghan Minister for Mines said they were $3 trillion. Past wars, contemporary conflict, and the subsequent influx of international assistance, however, has forced all development and reconstruction efforts to unfold in a highly criminalized political and economic space, including Afghanistan's immature yet promising mining sector. This article examines the evolution of natural resource exploitation by various violent entrepreneurs, such as local smuggling networks, corrupt power brokers, and insurgent groups such as the Taliban, the Haqqani network, and their Pakistani counterparts in the period before and during Afghanistan's contemporary conflict. Understanding this connection is important since state, criminal, and insurgent elements on both sides of Afghanistan and Pakistan border continue to reap profits from illegal excavations, protection rackets, informal taxation, and cross-border trafficking. This nexus is helping create new forms of state and private patronage systems as realms of business, crime, conflict, and corruption intersect in the already convoluted war economy of Afghanistan. I like this line here, but it needs to say politicians, business, crime, conflict, and corruption intersect. Don't leave out the politicians. Origins of illegal mining and smuggling in Afghanistan. The small-scale excavation and trafficking of precious stones and other mining commodities, such as chromite, marble, and coal, has long played a role in organized criminal activities and fundraising strategies for militant groups throughout the past 4 decades of conflict in Afghanistan. In general, the smuggling of contraband constitutes an enduring Afghan economic legacy. Smuggling comprised of as much as 20 to 25% of Afghanistan's total foreign trade in the early 1970s. In contrast to smuggling, the development of Afghanistan's exceedingly vast yet complex array of mineral reserves has been handicapped by its landlocked position, inefficient governance and corruption, lack of critical and modern infrastructure such as railways and highways, and its vulnerability to earthquakes, which hampers long-term geological extraction. Although the United Kingdom, United States, France, Sweden, Japan, and Russia have all engaged in resource exploration throughout Afghanistan since a British expedition first uncovered Afghan mineral wealth in 1815. These efforts largely failed except for the limited extraction of oil, natural gas, salt, coal, marble, and lapis lazuli precious stones. The United Kingdom, United States, France, Sweden, Japan, Russia, everybody, and the British have known since 1815. That's a long time. That's a good amount of time to plan things, isn't it? Following the Sour Revolution of 1978, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan the following year led to the onset of a nationwide civil war, which engulfed Afghanistan from 1980 until the collapse of the Afghan regime in 1992. Afghanistan's litany of resistance forces, collectively known as Mujahideen, soon developed a variety of state and private patronage sources and engaged in multiple licit and illicit fundraising efforts to help booster their war chests. Now we know that the Mujahideen was created by the CIA, and you can read that in a book called The Untold Stories of Afghanistan. And here we have the Mujahideen working with state and private people to engage in licit and illicit fundraising. And the CIA is running that. So who are the people that are giving money to the Mujahideen? That would be good to know, huh? The mining and extraction of lapis lazuli, world-class emeralds, and other precious gemstones in the northern provinces of Badakhshan and the Panjshir Valley became a critical source of revenue for the Jamaat-e-Ismaili resistance movement, one of the 7 largest Mujahideen parties that fought against the Soviet occupation. When Jamaat-e-Islami came to power in 1992, Afghan Defense Minister Mossad nationalized these mines, and through the assistance of a Polish company, Intercommerce, collected an estimated $200 million a year from the trade in precious gemstones. 1992, they nationalized the mines. Very interesting, huh? Not anymore. Constitution says nope. Emerald mining in the Panjshir Valley became a critical component of the war economy around 1985, with most of the lucrative extraction centered on the village of Kenj, an area then under control of the local Jamaat commander, Khan. Following the rise of the Taliban movement in 1994 and their seizure of state power in 1996, anti-Taliban militias came to unite under the umbrella group the United Islamic Front. The United Islamic Front continued to engage in precious stone extraction and trafficking in the Panjshir Valley, Takhar, Badakhshan, allegedly earning between $60 and $200 million per year from the trade. Wow, the Taliban is fabulously wealthy. Got their heroin, they've got their mining. These anti-Taliban militias led by Mossad would eventually acquire weapons, ammunition, and even helicopters to fight the Taliban from legendary black market arms dealer Victor Bott, exchanging emeralds and other precious stones for weapons under a commodity-for-commodity agreement. Now, CIA exchanges drug for weapons, and it's very nice that they now have a PC term, commodity for commodity. Weapons for precious stones. Wow, helicopters. Where do they get these helicopters from? The resistance by no means monopolized the extraction of precious stones and other commodities. The state power at the time, the Taliban regime, also engaged in simple and unskilled mining efforts during their tenure between 1996 and 2001. In 1997, the Taliban commander in charge of the government owned marble mines in the Helmand province, employed some 500 laborers armed only with primitive hand tools, extracting the marble through rudimentary blasting, subsequently scarring the finished project, which substantially reduced its worth. Remember at the very beginning, I told you in order to cut those beautiful pieces of marble that Alibaba is selling requires very high-end equipment. It really does. The widespread phenomenon of unskilled, unregulated, largely localized mining efforts inside and outside of state control continued unabated during this period, with the United Islamic Front commanders operating nearly 100 emerald mines in the Panjshir Valley alone. The contemporary flow of illicit minerals, the illegal acquisition and seizure of land, black market mining, and the trafficking of these resources surged following the collapse of the Taliban regime in November 2001. In 2005, the Afghan Ministry of Mines and Industries indicated nearly 80% of all mines remained under control of rogue commanders or criminals, with some of these mines being controlled by non-state actors since 1992. Several of the Afghans' most contested and insurgent-plagued areas, such as Khost, Ghazni, Logar, Paktika, and Baghlan provinces, also contained large mineral deposits and precious stone mines. And if I think about the CIA death squads, that's where they were. Khost, Logar, Paktika, and near the Ghazni area was actually the battle, the Anaconda battle. But in the article, they definitely talked about Khost, Logar, and they call it Paktika. This article says Paktia. So it kind of looks to me, when I go through this article, that the CIA was taking out these rogue commanders and taking out, there's lots of family miners that had been, that had owned these mines for a very long time. So these family miners were also taken out. They were called illegal mines, but they were family mines. Bordering the restive tribal areas of Pakistan, Khost Province is home to a number of criminal mining syndicates, many of which specialize in the surface extraction of chromite. In May 2010, the director of Khost's mining department, engineer Lek, admitted the provincial government has failed to prevent the smuggling and illegal extraction of Khost's chromite ore, despite the presence of 300 armed security guards tasked with securing the mines. Well, it sounds like someone from the inside might be helping. Afghan security officials indicate these syndicates are small in number, namely a few large families, who smuggle the ore across the border to Pakistan, where members of the Waziri tribe buy and trade the minerals to international customers. And you'd have to have pretty big international customers who were able to take these minerals and be able to do something with them in manufacturing. So these are probably pretty big international customers buying illegal. Analysts previously speculated that the illegal extraction of chromite in Khost amounts to nearly 20 million Afghanis per year, although the Afghan government believes it loses 1 million Afghanis in lost revenue from illegal chromite excavations in Khost each day. Besides lost revenue, the Afghan government faces a growing threat from the merger between corrupt business elites and local criminal syndicates who outsource chromite smuggling operations and pay protection fees to members of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and the Haqqani Network affiliates to ensure that the movement of illegally mined chromite reaches market destinations in Pakistan without interference. The most powerful of these syndicates was led by a illicit and licensed mining company that excavated chromite ore in Khost for 3 years without paying royalties to the government, and used a network of local smugglers from the Tani tribe to illegally smuggle the ore to North Waziristan, where members of the TTP would ensure the convoys were safely escorted in exchange for a payment. Many of those involved in the smuggling included members of Zadran tribe, the same tribal affiliation of the much-vaunted Haqqani Network. While those in charge of chromite trading belonged to the Mada Kel clan of the Utman Wazir tribe, the same tribe and clan of wanted Taliban commander Bahadur. These connections have not been lost on security forces operating in eastern Afghanistan, who face a multifaceted threat from local Taliban insurgents being supplied with deadly, improvised explosive devices and suicide bombers from Bahadar and the Hakini networks, as well as TTP. Between March and October 2011, at least 2 U.S. drone strikes targeted Taliban fighters who were loyal to Pakistani Taliban commander Bahadar and linked to the smuggling and trading of chromite. On March 17th, 2 U.S. missiles slammed into a compound in Nawai Ada near the northern Waziristan, reportedly killing more than 40 Madakel tribesmen and Taliban fighters attending a jirga, or tribal meeting, to help resolve a dispute between two parties over the sale of a chromite mine that costs approximately $100,000. So very cheap. So very cheap. Among the dead was Sharabat Khan, a senior deputy to Bahadar, who was sent to mediate the dispute on behalf of the Taliban. On October 31st, up to 4 missiles fired from the U.S. drone killed 4 men, including a local chromite trader named Sahidur Rahman in the Doga Madakel village of North Waziristan, an area located in the Dadakel Tehsil that is controlled by Bahadar. Whoo, I know I'm just not doing those names right. They are tricky. In this paragraph, we see what they're using drones for. They're using drones to kill people who have had a part in these mines. And I had mentioned that before. I had said that, but now here we have the proof from this West Point article. They're killing people who have ran these mines, whether legal or illegal. All right. Bordering coast is Zormat, district of Paktika province, another major hub in the trade of illicit minerals and narcotics in eastern Afghanistan, situated between some of the largest chromite deposits in Afghanistan, namely the Dayak district of Ghazni province and the Dadukel desert of Logar. Zormat is a hotly contested district where locally operated smuggling syndicates and linked to those in coast dictate the flow of illicit goods destined for larger markets outside the province and in neighboring Pakistan. In Logar province, there are approximately 20 precious stone mines in addition to the massive Anyak copper mine. Among these are the massive surface deposits of chromite in the Dadakel Desert, located approximately 10 kilometers east of the provincial capital of Puliyam. In 2006, hundreds of armed men were reportedly extracting chromite ore from the Dadakel area at night. They smuggled the ore to Gardez and on through to Jaji, district of Paktia, for destinations in Pakistan. Smugglers in this area often hid their haul of their chromite under loads of timber, nearly all of which is bound for Bara or contraband markets in Pakistan. By September 2010, the Afghan Ministry of Mines acknowledged that efforts to secure the chromite fields in Logar have failed, just as they have in coast, with an estimated 400 tons of precious ore smuggled out of the country every day, in part because the provincial governor and chief of police continue to play integral roles in the area's black market chromite trade. So here we are in Logar, one of the places where there's CIA death squads, and they can't seem to secure the chromite fields in Logar or coast. So do you think they use those CIA death squads to kill these people? To take over those chromite mines? They just might have. In addition to chromite extraction and smuggling, small and medium-scale unlicensed extraction of coal in the central province of Bamiyan and Baghlan have also bolstered the war chests of local smuggling syndicates and criminal networks. In July 2011, local Afghan media reports suggested that among the 100 coal mines functioning in the central province of Bamiyan, the government only controls and operates 6 of them. Gold, rubies, and emerald extraction continues through unlicensed operators connected to powerful businesses and political elites in Takhar, Badakhshan, Nuristan, Baghlan, and Panjshir provinces. Conclusion. Furthermore, corrupt government officials at all levels and illicit business practices, such as paying bribes, also exacerbate the situation. In the summer of 2009, the rate for government security forces to protect smugglers and their convoys in the Ghanzi province reportedly ranged between 400 and 2,000 per truck. Similar stories were also reported in Baktashan, Takhar, Beglahan, Khost, and Logar provinces in the late 2011. This article really gives us a lot of background information on mining in Afghanistan, more information than I had known before I found this, of course, where they're talking about the Mujahideen and the Haqqani network. And so we get an idea of all the different players that have been operating in the mines in Afghanistan, because really all we've seen on TV is the war. And now we see this massive, massive octopus of mining information and many people involved. And of course, all while the war is going on. Now let's take a look at this article. It's by USGS, and it's entitled Secretly Stashed Afghanistan Gold Maps Emerge. And here are the beautiful mountains of Afghanistan. And this is from March 16, 2015. USGS scientists realized that it was not enough to produce maps and reports that would gather dust if no one was trained to use them. Maps showing Afghanistan's largest known gold deposit and other gold, copper, mercury, and iron sites in the region and near Herat have been reconstructed and remade by the USGS. The new USGS maps were modified and interpreted from a collection of unpublished Soviet maps dating back to 1967. The old maps were tattered and torn, yet legible thanks to decades of safeguarding by Afghans during times of turmoil and conflict. And here are the beautiful mountains of Afghanistan. Colorful mountains of Saripul. Hint of copper is green and iron is red. So copper here and iron. The modern maps were part of a larger decade-long Afghan USGS project to gather and update the country's mineral and energy resources information and to build the country's capacity to conduct modern earth science research. So nice of you, USGS. You just wanted to help them conduct modern earth science research. Wow, so generous. It wouldn't have been the millionaires wanting to take advantage of all that mining. No. In just 10 years, a cadre of Afghan scientists were trained. Modern earth science equipment and networks were installed, and more than 40 terabytes of earth science data were generated. And then coming down in these next couple paragraphs, they just kind of say that these maps, they were folded, they were faded, they were falling apart. Will Stetner didn't know what kind of coordinate system it was using. Where's the north arrow? Things didn't fit with the known topography, rock type, structural geology, all had to be reinterpreted into modern-day geology. Because, mountains move, and lakes move, and we have to reinterpret them. Well, rivers move, for sure. But what I really wanted to go to here, it says, Afghan USGS partnership. For more than 75 years, the USGS has worked in countries around the world. The efforts focus on institution building, and they also engender interaction with foreign scientific colleagues, providing USGS scientists with knowledge and experience of a value that is incalculable. 75 years. No kidding, USGS. Well, since World War II, we've went into Vietnam, we've went into Korea, all these countries. Have you been surveying right there with the elite all this time past World War II? I find USGS to be complicit in crimes against humanity. I think they know very well what is going on. And now we come to this article to learn a little bit more about how USGS was mapping the minerals of Afghanistan. And this is in 2012. New USGS report and maps highlight Afghanistan's mineral potential, but obstacles remain. And the previous article we read was also in 2012. Two maps released to the public for the first time this month illustrate the vast wealth of mineral deposits in the war-torn nation of Afghanistan. The maps, created through a joint effort from the USGS and Department of Defense Task Force for Business and Stability Operations, are first of the kind to provide large-scale coverage of a country using a technology called hyperspectral imaging, which measures the reflectance of material on the Earth's surface simultaneously across a continuous band of wavelengths broken into 10 to 20 nanometer intervals. More than 800 million individual pixels of data were collected during a period of 43 days in 2007 by a NASA aircraft. Each data point was then compared to reference spectrum entries in a spectral library of minerals, vegetation, water, ice, and snow in order to characterize surface materials across the Afghan landscape. Why does the USGS have a task force for business and stability operations? I don't know. But here you have this high-tech equipment, hyperspectral imaging. And you can't find Osama bin Laden in the Tora Bora caves with any of this high-tech equipment we've paid for with our taxes for the military. You can't find him at all. Can you use this equipment? Does NASA have other equipment we could use in which we could have found Osama bin Laden? None of this makes sense. It really doesn't. Accompanying the release of these maps is a USGS study completed in September of 2011 that largely confirms earlier reports from the US DoD and USGS on the size of Afghanistan's untapped mineral resources. The first reports say it's upwards of 900 billion worth of mineral reserves. We already know it's 3 trillion. Scientists involved with the project believe that there may be even more reserves awaiting discovery. I fully expect that our estimates are conservative, says Robert Tucker from USGS. With more time and more people doing proper exploration, it could become a major, major discovery. They really like to trash anyone else who has worked on surveying Afghanistan and act like they've just had to work so hard to put such terrible, crappy research together. It's not true at all. It's not true at all. People have known how to write survey maps for a long time in all the different countries, like I've said, so it's just stupid. Now let's go down to this paragraph. Although the hyperspectral maps only show mineral deposits on the surface, geologists were able to estimate what lies beneath by combining new data with sample previously taken from trenches, drills holes, or underground workings at the area of interest by Soviet and Afghan scientists. According to the USGS, a number of areas of interest were field-checked by USGS and DoD geologists between 2009 and 2011, and the previous geologic interpretations and concepts were confirmed. I didn't know DoD had geologists. We thought you were there to fight wars, but you have business strategies and geologists. That's just fantastic. Afghanistan has been scouring the globe for investors to develop its mines in an attempt to lift one of the world's poorest nations out of misery through investment, according to the Wall Street Journal. Contracts have already been awarded to China and India to develop copper and iron mines, respectively, and another round of bidding is currently in progress for 4 unexploited sites that are being closely eyed by countries such as the United States, Australia, and Turkey. But significant hurdles remain in the quest to turn Afghanistan's buried minerals into a steady source of income for the government and the Afghan people. Security is still a major concern. The government has established a mines protection unit to guard sites where ground has already been broken and plans to increase the size of the unit as necessary to provide security for all mining projects nationwide. Yeah, we can't take down the Taliban, but we can provide security for mining. Sure we can. For now, the Afghan Ministry of Mines is only taking bids for the project in the more secure northern part of the country, where deposits of copper and gold are located. As the nation develops and stabilizes, massive resources of rare earth elements located in the notoriously volatile Helmand province will open for bids. And we had death squads in Helmand province. We sure did. There are also the traditional pitfalls of developing extractive industries, especially in poor and conflict-prone countries, including corruption, inequity, land disputes, and environmental degradation, and the fact that Afghanistan is landlocked. Land disputes. The Rockefellers don't create land disputes. They see your land, they see you have gold, they kill you, they take your land. I should say the Rockefeller Trust, Rockefeller Rothschild Vatican Trust. Despite the many hurdles, there are plenty of optimism for an Afghan future brightened by mineral wealth. Not for the people, not for you Afghanistan people. This is not going to be yours. You're going to continue to suffer. The new data shows that previous reports of substantial resources were not far off, and the Afghan economy, which for years has relied on opium as its biggest export, could certainly use the help. The progenesis is extremely encouraging and could play a significant role in recovery from decades of war, said USAID advisor Wayne Pennington. Got to mention USAID because Chossudovsky said that USAID was also with USGS and the Pentagon. They don't mention the Pentagon in this article, but the Pentagon was also involved. All these little bees are busy working to get their little share of the pie. And here's the last little article I want to show you. This is from OSTI.gov, U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Scientific and Technical Information. This is just an abstract, and it was written in 1983. Afghanistan is a geological complex in which plentiful minerals and fuels were formed. Western geologists explored that country during the last 100 years and produced many reports and maps. Real progress in a systematic analysis, however, was not made until the intensive efforts of the Soviet Union during the past 2 decades. But USGS says just shoddy work, torn pages, old. But here, the U.S. Department of Energy says there were intensive efforts of the Soviet Union during the past 2 decades. By diplomatic and economic maneuvers, the Soviets took control of Afghanistan's nascent hydrocarbon industry during the 1960s. Following the 1973 coup, the Soviets and Afghan supporters replaced pro-Western technical advisors and hampered Western League development. Intensive field investigations led to the discovery of hundreds of mineral deposits and several good petroleum prospects. The current Russian military occupation is partially subsidized with Afghanistan resources. So 1983, Russia is still there. And hey, they're using that oil that they started building the pipeline on to Uzbekistan in 1960 to fund their war in Afghanistan. And they have made intensive efforts in surveying Afghanistan. This country has been explored for 100 years and produced many reports and maps. So if the U.S. government is just pretending that all of this is happening just now, just like the Tapi pipeline, it's not true. And in showing you these articles, you can see how many people are involved in mining in Afghanistan. It's vast. And we have all these, according to this article, all these elites, politicians. We have all sorts of different militia groups. It's so huge. When I began to sit down and look at it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. Had no idea that all of this was going on. And here's also a preliminary non-fuel mineral resource assessment of Afghanistan in 2007, and modified from 74. And here we have all these maps telling you again that they have worked over 100 years to map Afghanistan. Remember, the New World Order makes long-term plans. And so now we know that at least by 1815, the British already knew that this material was there. Well, this is Radioactive Banana, and I appreciate you coming by and viewing my videos. Even if I go over a lot of details, I think all this information is really helpful, at least for me in my investigation. Because like in this part of the investigation, I've seen all the same towns that we had CIA death squads in. And now I've learned that there were various miners that they probably wanted to get rid of so that they could sell these mines over to, big business, big entrepreneurs, people who already had other mines. So this was a helpful part for me for saying, yes, I think there is a connection between the CIA death squads and these mining areas. They sure are in the same places. I also learned from doing this research that the surveying in Afghanistan has been going on for a very long time. And though USGS might say that these were unknown deposits, this is all quite new, how fantastical. It's not true. This has been going on since 1815, and the Soviets did an investigation, and the West Point article said France and Japan and Sweden and all these countries, the United Kingdom and the British, had all been doing surveying. And so it's difficult to swallow that USGS and the US media put out information that is just so significantly incorrect. And for what purposes is the question? Are they just in Afghanistan surveying the area, teaching other scientists the new modern science, all the new modern survey stuff? Or are they there for the elites? It seems to me they're there for the elites, especially when they're leaving information out and act like surveying hasn't been done till recently, and the Soviets' maps were just horrible. This is one of the Soviets' maps. This is one of the Soviet maps right here. Here's another Soviet map right here. And here. Oh, they don't have the tectonic plates? You're kidding me. I don't need to see the tectonic plates. Though I understand where they come together, then you find all sorts of minerals. But I mean, it doesn't change the fact of, where the mountains are, where the lakes and rivers are. And I'm guessing USGS just had to translate this into English. Or maybe they had like a stone meant gold, and a stone and a rock meant copper, and 2 stones and 2 rocks meant bauxite, and 2 stones, 2 rocks, and a socks meant marble. Come on, USGS. People have been doing surveying for a long time. But again, thank you so much for stopping by and watching my videos. My next video is going to be talking about the minerals themselves and looking at who owns these minerals in Afghanistan. This is Radioactive Banana, signing out.